Hello everyone, I am the storyteller. Tonight I'll tell you a story stitched with dread, and that is one that Elias Thorne couldn't forget, even after his mind stopped being his own. He was sent to a research station buried deep in the Arctic. Their silence stretches for miles, and the snow hides more than bones. So get comfortable, listen to the wind press against the glass, and discover what happened when the spiral beneath the ice began to wake. They told me the station was abandoned because of budget cuts. That's what they always say, isn't it? Funding dries up, programs shut down, data gets boxed and shelved in some federal basement. Routine reassessment, they said. Standard Arctic withdrawal. They handed me a badge, a manifest, and a return ticket stamped 2 months from now. Just a simple geological survey monitor, a few ice shelves, catalog seismic patterns, reestablish a presence up there in case of future interest. No one mentioned the journal and the bunkhouse. No one mentioned the humming beneath the ice. And absolutely no one prepared me for the dreams. I want to be clear about something before we go any further. I am not crazy, or at least I wasn't. I've taught at Columbia, published in Geophysics Today, chaired review panels for the NSF. I spent my life explaining the unexplainable in terms of compression, erosion, time. I've measured the pulse of this planet down to the marrow. I've listened to fault lines breathe. But nothing prepared me for what I found at Station Sycamore. The cold isn't the kind that chills you. It's the kind that waits. So before the last rational part of me vanishes into that white fog, before I forget my own name, and the earth swallows the rest, please, if you're listening, burn this recording, bury it, forget it, because if I'm right, we were never meant to be here, and if I'm wrong, God help anyone who finds this place again. They dropped me off just after sundown. Not that it made a difference. Up here, the sun doesn't rise for weeks at a time, only shades of darkness shifting across the snow like bruises healing backward. The pilot didn't stick around. He barely looked at me, just waved once through the scratched window of the chopper, then lifted off in a rush of powder and rotor blade thunder. Swallowed whole by the gray, I stood there a minute too long, hand still raised like a man waving goodbye at a funeral. Station Sycamore hunched against the wind about 100 yards off 5 modular buildings half sunken in drift, wrapped in corroded sheet metal and frost. The main structure leaned like it was listening for something underground. Everything creaked. Everything smelled like rust and ammonia and some chemical I couldn't name. The cold here has personality. It's not just absence it presses. It gets behind your eyes, between your ribs. You breathe it in, and it doesn't leave. It burrows. Inside, the lights flickered on in sections, one after the other. Like an old man remembering his name, the heating was already running. Someone had been here recently, or maybe something never left. I claim the bunk farthest from the windows. They were all crusted over with rime, but I didn't like the idea of seeing anything move out there, even if it was just snow. Found the journal the first night. It was tucked beneath a loose floorboard in the dormitory lounge, exactly where no one would put something unless they didn't want it found, but needed it close. The handwriting changed every few pages. No names, just initials, short, broken entries. Gen 18. Lights under the glacier again, not the aurora. Much too low. E says it's residual ionization. He always says that. Then he looks like he's about to be sick. 10:24. Heard it again, the sound. Low, like a cello string underwater. We checked the monitors. Nothing there, nothing ever there. Why does it only come when we stop trying to listen? January 30th. R is gone. Just gone. He left his coat. No one leaves their coat. I stopped reading after that, not out of fear, not even out of disbelief. I stopped because I heard something, a vibration, more than a sound, beneath the floor. So low I thought it was in my chest at first, a warbling hum, like an engine idling in the deep dark. It went on for maybe 10 seconds, then stopped. And that's when I noticed the thermostat. The needle had dropped 7 degrees since I entered the room. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I closed my eyes, sure. But my brain ran like a projector, with no film, just the whirring of something old, trying to remember what it once saw. In the morning, I walked the perimeter, took barometric readings, logged the seismic monitors, tried to do the job. The snow kept shifting in unnatural ways, like the land was breathing. I found footprints that didn't match my boots, longer, narrower, spaced like something not quite bipedal. I photographed them. They were gone an hour later. I told myself it was wind, always wind. That night the dream came. It wasn't a nightmare, not exactly, just a place. Vast, underground, lit from beneath by a pale green light that bled through stone. I wasn't alone. I could feel them watching, not malicious, not yet, but aware. When I woke, my pillow was damp. Not from sweat, my nose had bled during the night. I made coffee, found a smear of ash in the sink that hadn't been there before. Then the radio crackled to life, just static until a voice broke through. My voice, speaking words I hadn't said yet. We were never meant to dig this deep. It cut out. I haven't been able to get it working since. Tomorrow I'll check the outpost tunnels. That's where the strange readings are coming from. I told myself I'd only stay for the initial sweep, that I'd take notes, pull the data, go home. But something under this ice is pulling. It wants us to see it. And I think I've seen it before, even if I've never been here. Until now, I took the lower corridor after breakfast, if you can call lukewarm instant oatmeal and coffee thick as tar breakfast. The main tunnel slopes downward from the central module, branching off like tree roots under a belly of pack ice and permafrost. It's not natural. That's the part that stuck in my mind, even as I tried to rationalize it. The slope is too even, the walls too smooth, as if something had bored its way through, not with tools, but intent. They called this section the bore in the old records. Not a drill site, not a lab annex, just the bore. The station logs from 1983 to 2000, to mention it only twice. The first was a line item requesting seismic shielding. The second simply said, "Lock hatch 7C indefinitely. No further entries permitted. Project Hermes terminated." But there's no hatch 7C, not on the map they gave me. It's real. I've stood in front of it. The keypad's corroded, the hinges sealed with frost and something black like old resin. I don't know why I lied about seeing it in the first place. I just didn't want anyone asking me questions I couldn't answer. Because when I stood there, when I touched that cold, scorched steel, I felt the hum again, stronger. The vibration passed through my palm like a whisper, not sound, not electricity, more like ... Memory, I took 3 steps back, almost slipped on a patch of ice. That's when I noticed it scratched into the far wall, mostly buried behind ice crystals and age. I don't know Inuktitut, not fluently, but I know a few glyphs. That one, it's old, like pre-contact old. My satellite translator gave me to possibilities. Deep house or burial place, both accurate maybe, neither comforting. I came back topside just after 1300 hours. There were new tracks outside the north airlock again, not mine. Something had walked in a wide arc around the station during the night, not an animal. The stride was too long. Whatever it was walked upright, barefoot. I checked the trail cam I set up on arrival. The footage skips exactly 9 seconds between 3 hours, 12 minutes, and 47 seconds, and 3 hours, 12 minutes, and 56 seconds. 9 seconds of black static. When it resumes, there's a shape barely visible standing at the edge of frame, just inside the perimeter light. It doesn't move, it doesn't blink, and it doesn't match any human silhouette I've seen. Too long to still, its shoulders slow-grown. I froze the frame and enhanced it. The moment I did, the monitor spark then died. The file corrupted itself, like it didn't want to be watched. That was when I finally called in or tried. The uplink was active. The satellite tracker confirmed signal, but no one responded. Not the NSF, not the university, not the emergency line. The only thing that came through was a single garbled voice choked, whispering, not in English. I recorded it, played it back 5 times, slowed it down, reversed the audio. The same word emerged each time. Kalumet. That isn't Inuktitut, or Russian or Scandinavian. I checked every root dialect I could, but I do know where I've seen it before, buried in a footnote from an obscure 1897 geological report. Seismic anomalies detected beneath Kalumet Ridge. Local tribe refuses to camp nearby, citing presence of deep song spirits. Recommend no further drilling. Kalumet Ridge, 17 miles south of here. Guess where Station Sycamore was built? I made a note to check the original land surveys tomorrow. But I already know what I'll find. This place was never chosen for research. Not really, it was bait, a trap we sprung on ourselves. That night the dreams changed. Not underground this time. Not a place, a face. Not a face like you or I have a suggestion of one, carved in ash and glacier rot blank. Wet, watching it spoke to me, not in sound and feeling, like pressure on the mind, shaping thought before it could form. I don't remember what it said exactly, but I woke up choking on frost. The window above my bed had iced over from the inside. I ran my finger across it. Not frost, rime. In the shape of a spiral. I didn't leave my bunk for 3 hours. Not because I was tired. Sleep, if you can even call it that anymore, comes in staccato bursts, like drowning with breath in your lungs, but because I didn't want to look at that window again. The spiral was gone when I finally worked up the nerve to check. Melted clean, like it had never been there. I didn't imagine it. I only looked away for a few seconds, long enough to blink, to shake the last claws of the dream from behind my eyes. Then it was gone, a smooth sheet of hoarfrost, innocent and crystalline, as if the ice had decided to hide its message until I was ready to hear it again. That's when I started to suspect I'm not alone in this place. I don't mean in the spiritual sense. I mean someone else is still living here, or near enough to enter and leave without a trace. The supply inventory was off. 3 tins of coffee missing. 1 emergency blanket gone. The field med kit had been refilled through. Nothing stolen, but things moved just slightly out of order. A scalpel lying where it shouldn't be. A thermometer snapped clean at the bulb, and someone had placed a leather-bound book on my desk. I swear it wasn't there the day before. It was old, warped at the spine, pages foxed and yellowing with moisture damage. Inside, notes, sketches, diagrams, and ink faded almost to sepia. Geological cross-sections mixed with ritualistic symbols, notations in both English and something older, sharper, slanting like thorns bent in snow. No title on the cover, just a hand-inked inscription inside. Field Journal, E.T. Sycamore Cycle 2. My initials, but I've never been here before. I called the comm tower again. 1622. Still static, but this time someone answered. Not a voice breathing, not human either, too slow, too steady. Like the wind trying to imitate lungs, the sound filled the cabin like it was behind me. I turned, no one there. Then the breathing stopped, a click, then the bones remember, Elias, click, silence, the signal died. I went back into the bore at dusk, brought a recorder, a seismic mic, and my father's old revolver. It's never been fired, probably never will be, but there's something about the weight of it in my coat that makes the air feel less tight around my ribs. The passage walls had changed, not drastically, just enough to notice if you'd already been down there once before. The frost patterns were different, concentric now, like ice forming around an eye that doesn't blink. And the ceiling, it was lower only by inches, but the tunnel is sinking, or breathing, or growing. I followed the slope until I reached hatch 7C. It wasn't sealed anymore. The black resin had melted, dripped in long, tarry ropes down the side of the door like sap from a wounded tree. The keypad still flashed red, but the locking bolts had retracted. I didn't open it, not then, because I heard movement beyond it. Not voices, not shuffling, shifting, like something large rearranging itself in a space too small to contain it. I recorded exactly 11 seconds of it. That night, when I played it back, all I heard was my own voice on loop. Open the door. Elias, you have to open the door. I never said that. I'm writing this now with every light in the cabin turned on. I've shut all interior doors, stacked my empty gear trunks against the main entrance. Paranoia, maybe. But it isn't the fear that's making my hands shake. It's the recognition, because earlier, while leafing again through the leather journal, I found a sketch on the back page. A structure hexagonal, open like a mouth in stone, inside lines descending in spirals, annotated with seismic frequencies. Underneath the sketch, we dug too deep. Not into the earth, but into the memory of it, my handwriting, undeniably mine. But I've never drawn that before, have I? I didn't open the hatch that night. I thought I'd shown some restraint. I told myself I needed more data, needed a better plan. But the truth is simpler. I was afraid it would open on its own, and more than that, I was afraid I'd welcome it. I spent most of the next day examining the book, the journal, my journal. It's like reading someone else's dream of my life. The voice is mine, sharply observant, methodical, but there are entries I have no memory of writing. Diagrams I know I never drew, detailed field reports dated 7 years ago, always signed with my initials, always in ink I'd recognize from the pens I still carry. One entry stood out, April 2nd. The humming has rhythm now, not random, not geological, something repeating, cyclical, patterned. L thinks it's tectonic memory. He doesn't know how close he is, but it's not just the earth remembering, it's remembering us, what we brought, what we took. There is no April 2nd entry in my life that matches this, but the pen strokes are mine. The pressure, the lean of the T, the hesitation in the E. I ran a test. I tore a blank page from the back, scribbled today's date, same pen. Then I held it up to the old entries under UV. Same ink, same age, impossible, unless time is wrong here, not broken looping. After dusk, I walked out to the ice shelf. No wind, dead silence. A hush so total it made my breath feel intrusive. I found something half buried in the snow, about 50 yards past the secondary antenna array. A ring of stones, perfectly circular, each the size of a human skull, arranged deliberately like a marker, or a doorway at the center of fossil. At least, that's what I told myself it was at first, but it was to fresh, the lines to sharp. A spiral of ridges coiled in on itself like a shell, but segmented, faintly organic. I reached to brush off the frost, and my hand recoiled before contact. The thing vibrated, not from within, from below. It felt like holding a tuning fork to the skull, something deep and internal responding, not the ear, not the skin, like a sound that never needed to be heard, only felt. That night the spiral appeared again in my dream, only this time I wasn't looking at it. I was falling through it. The walls weren't made of stone. They were made of memory, mine. Memories that weren't mine. A man in a bowler hat with frostbitten hands, whispering to himself beside an iron stove. A woman holding a lantern, crying into a cracked mirror that wouldn't show her reflection. A child walking barefoot across ice, leaving no prints, all of them speaking in the same voice. Don't follow the spiral. Follow the silence between the turns. I woke with blood in my ears. At 3:13, the humming returned. This time, it came with a smell, metal and rot, like iron left in seawater. It filled the corridor outside my cabin like a fog that knew my name. I opened the door with the recorder running. Footprints in the frost. Human, barefoot, leading toward the bore. No exit prints, just an entrance. So I followed them down the slope, past hatch 7C, which stood open. No damage, no sign of force, just open inside. The passage was lined with rough-hewn walls, not mechanical, not natural. Something dug this. The air was warm, warmer than above ground, and wet. The walls pulsed faintly, not visibly, felt like being inside the rib cage of something asleep. I made it 20 meters before I turned back. Not because I was scared, because I almost didn't want to leave, because it felt like it had missed me. Back in my cabin, I sat on the floor for hours. Didn't sleep, couldn't. I played the audio back. This time, the recording didn't capture the hum. Instead, it captured something worse, my voice, whispering into the mic directly. You're not going mad, you're going back. You never left, Kalumet remembers, I didn't write anything down for 3 days after that. Not because I didn't try. Every time I lifted a pen, my hand began to shake. Not a tremor, something deeper, like my bones knew what I was about to record and refused. I'm forcing myself now. I need the anchor. If I don't fix the order of events, they begin to smear together like oil on glass. Time moves differently in Sycamore now. It's not linear, it folds. And I think I've begun to leak between the seams. January 12th, midday, the light through the storm shielding had changed, yellowed, almost bruised, the eyes outside seen, denser, heavier somehow, like it had absorbed something unclean. I ran a ground-penetrating radar sweep. The shelf beneath Sycamore has shifted significantly. There's a new void, 60 meters below hatch 7C. Roughly cylindrical, 40 feet across, depth unknown, too smooth to be natural, no sign of structural collapse, no geothermal activity to explain the anomaly. Just a black space opening like a pupil. It wasn't there last week. I found more entries in the book. Pages I swear weren't there before. June 14th. L. Lost. Not dead lost. Walked the tunnels for 3 hours. Came back bleeding from the ears. Said he saw his mother calling him from the ice. She's been dead 20 years. June 15th. They don't lie. They just repeat what we've hidden. June 17th. Don't bleed on the stone. The spiral feeds on memory, but blood binds it. Nothing stays buried once it's fed. Those pages were marked with a dried smear, rust brown, smelled like iron. I wore gloves after that. January 13th, 2:47. The emergency klaxon went off. Not possible. The system isn't connected to anything anymore. No incoming storms, no structural breach, just a constant, deafening blare. I shut it down manually, checked every sensor, nothing. But the moment the alarm died, I heard it again, footsteps on the roof, deliberate, measured, pacing. I stood at the center of the room, revolver in hand, heart kicking like a trapped animal. The pacing continued for 6 full minutes. Then silence. I checked outside. No footprints, no marks, no nothing. But the spiral had returned. This time drawn in blood. ... Not mine, not animal. In a perfect coil, stretched from my door to the edge of the southern drift, January 14th, I found the first corpse. It wasn't fresh, or maybe it was. The thing that used to be a man had been half fused to the tunnel wall, arms stretched long, too long, as if something had pulled them gently until the joints gave way and the bones unzipped. No skin on the chest, just a lattice of symbols carved, not with a blade, with memory. That's the only way I can explain it. I recognized the shapes before I saw them, like I'd dreamed them, like I'd drawn them in my sleep. I stood there for I don't know how long, staring. Then I noticed the eyes, still open, still wet. He had frozen watching something. And I knew that if I turned my back on that body, it would not be there when I came back. So I didn't. I dragged what was left of him topside, buried it shallow under the comms tower in the frozen soul, muttering apologies the whole time. Later, I checked the station logs. No record of any other crew this year or last. The last team assigned to Sycamore had been delayed indefinitely due to equipment requisition failure, and yet I found a photo on the dead man's body. For people, one of them was me. I don't remember it being taken. but I'm holding the journal and the picture. The same journal I'm writing this in now, January 15th. I haven't eaten in 2 days. The cold's changing. It doesn't bite anymore. It whispers. Yesterday I watched frost form a sentence on my window in real time. There's nitrogen monoxide past. Only return. It faded when I blinked. But I remember every letter I sealed off the board today. Bolted shut hatch 7C, welded scrap metal across the frame, stacked to full crates of course samples against it. A ritual more than a precaution. Deep down, I don't think anything down there needs doors, but it gave me the illusion of separation. Illusion's all I have left. There's a new smell in the station now, sweet, almost floral, but decaying like orchids left too long in a hot room. It comes and goes, lingers in corners, clings to my clothes. I tried washing everything in bleach. Didn't help. My skin still itches where the scent touched it. No rash, no discoloration, just awareness like I've been marked. I started cataloging the dreams, not just for sanity, but for pattern. Because they are not random, they build. Dream 1. The spiral scene from above. A tunnel without end. A whisper in the dark that says my name without sound. Dream 2. Falling not through air, but through thought. Layers of memory like paper burning in reverse. People I never knew. Lives I never lived. All of them dreaming me in return. Dream 3. The figure tall and wrong and ancient. Not in age, but in structure. Like it was made before the concept of shape was finalized. It speaks through gesture, points at a place under the ice, a hollow, a wound. Each time I wake up, I feel less like Elias Thorne, like I'm becoming someone else or something else is becoming me. I finally checked the land deed for the station. Kalumet Ridge was never surveyed by the U.S. Geological Service. That entire section of the Arctic was redacted in 1973. I found a microfiche report dated April 4, 1979. Subject: Ridge Formation Kalumet Complex. Anomaly sustained over multiple layers, inconsistent with known glacial movement. Tectonic signatures suggest structural echo-reflections from non-natural architecture beneath lithosphere. Repeat, non-natural architecture. Recommend immediate suspension of Project Hermes and relocation of personnel. Further excavation may compromise containment. No one ever relocated. They buried the report. They built the station on top of it. That night I heard knocking, not at the door, inside the walls. Slow, purposeful, 3 knocks, then a pause. Then 3 more. I shouted, threatened, fired a round into the paneling, silence, until I turned around and found the journal. My journal opened to a new page, January 16th. Elias still resists, still believes in doors, in names. He'll learn. They all learn. He was the last one to close the gate. He'll be the first to open it again. The date was correct. I hadn't written it, but it was in my handwriting. I began testing the spiral. I drew it on paper. On the walls, I carved it into the ice with the tip of my knife. Every time I did, I felt calmer, centered, like a pressure behind my eyes released. But it's not just a symbol, it's a key. When I sleep near it, I see more. I understand things I shouldn't. Geological structures too deep to map, layers of stone that hum with thought. A network beneath the ridge, vast and circular and alive. It isn't a mine, it's a skull. And we're living inside its memory, January 17th. The spiral on my forearm appeared overnight. No cuts, no ink, just the mark flush, with the skin warm to the touch. It pulses every time I walk near the bore. I haven't eaten in for days. I'm not hungry, I'm remembering what it was like before the surface. Before time, before breath, I saw a shape in the calm's mirror. For a moment I thought it was my own reflection, but it blinked before I did, and smiled, and then the mirror cracked without a sound. I hear them now, not footsteps, not voices, thoughts, coming from below, rising like heat, memories that don't belong to me, but they fit so well, like they were always waiting for the right skull to live in. I watched the sun rise today, or I thought I did, a pale disk low on the horizon, like a cataract clouding the eye of the sky. It didn't warm anything, didn't move, just hovered there, fixed, mocking the idea of time. When I checked my instruments, they all read night, no solar gain, no photometric increase, no deviation in the light sensors. And yet I could see my shadow stretching across the ice. We're past science now. What's happening here doesn't obey thermodynamics or gravity, or even causality. It obeys memory, and memory lies. The mark on my arm is spreading. Veins spidering out from the spiral, black, but not bruised. The skin is soft, pliable, hot to the touch. I took a scalpel and sliced the edge of one vein, just a nick. No blood, just a whisper, too faint to understand. But it sounded like my mother. I haven't spoken her name in 20 years. I shouldn't remember her voice, but I do. January 18th, the spiral chamber opened, not by force, by permission. I went down to the bore intending to reinforce the blockade. Found hatch 7C wide open, like it had never been sealed. No frost, no sign of ice melt, as if time had bent around the effort and erased it. Beyond the hatch, the tunnel had changed. No longer crude, now clean to clean. Smooth walls of basalt, polished like obsidian, pulsing faintly with an internal glow. The spiral had moved from symbol to structure, the tunnel coiling downward, perfectly precise, descending deeper than my instruments could measure. I entered. I don't know how far I went. Distance loses meaning inside the coil. Every step feels like returning. Eventually, I reached a platform, circular, etched with carvings too deep for any tool to have made. The entire room vibrated, not physically, cognitively. I could feel information pressing against the membrane of thought. This is where the dreams had been leading me. This is where they began. In the center of the platform was a shape. I cannot describe it, not out of fear, out of incompatibility. My eyes saw something. My brain rejected it, not because it was monstrous, but because it was wrong for language. Geometry that suggested will, symmetry that breathed. It knew me, and worse, I knew it. I fell to my knees, not from reverence. From recognition, the hum returned, not external, inside my bones. It wasn't a sound, it was an answer, and it asked no question. When I woke, I was back in my cabin. No frost on my clothes, no snow in the tread of my boots. The time log had not advanced. It was still January 18th. The entire experience hadn't happened yet, or had always been happening. The journal was open. My hands were stained with that same rust-colored ink. A new entry. The spiral is not the path. It's the needle. You are the thread. What you stitch cannot be undone. The dreams have changed again. No more spiral. Now it's rooms. Endless rooms, doorways that loop back into themselves, people with blank faces walking silently in robes made of old maps and rusted wire. They carry mirrors, they ask no questions. Only press the mirrors forward until I'm forced to look. I don't see myself. I see the spiral chamber, and I am not alone in it. There are new footprints outside the comms room. They start at the door and walk away. No origin, only destination. The storm arrived tonight. No wind, no snow, just dark. It felt like a curtain, instant, absolute. Visibility, zero. I looked out the window and saw nothing. Not blackness, nothing, as if the world beyond had been unwritten, and in that moment I understood. This place is not on the map, not anymore. Because it was never meant to be found, it is not a station, it is a seal, and we broke it. The storm has lifted. Day for now, by my estimate, but the clock says it's still January 18th. Instruments frozen, cameras dead, time warped like heat haze on ice. I haven't left a cabin in 36 subjective hours. I've lit every lamp I can find. The darkness outside presses against the glass, not inert, but watchful. It isn't weather, it's presence, and it wants to come in. The comms mirror cracked again. Same spot as before, spidering out from the center like something struck it from the inside. I taped a piece of canvas over it, but it bulged outward an hour later, like a bubble breath trapped in glass. Something's behind the reflection, something patient. I've begun reading aloud from the journal. My voice cracks. My tongue fights certain words, not because they're foreign, because they precede language. Descriptions of the spiral chamber, passages about the remembered stone, and entries that shift each time I read them. What once said, "The stone thrums in sympathy with blood," now reads, "The stone summons what remembers blood." I've tested this. I copied an entry, left it sealed in a drawer, then compared it a day later. Identical handwriting, different text. The journal is not recording my experience. It's recording my submission. I tried burning it. Flames consumed the outer pages easily enough, but the deeper I went, the colder the fire became. The ink did not melt, the paper did not curl. It shrieked, not aloud through thought, a psychic screech that rang through the cabin like feedback. I threw the thing into a snowdrift barefoot, mad with terror. It was back on my desk by dawn, dry dot open to a page I'd never seen. They were here before land rose from sea, before thought took shape. They remember every name given to stone, and every name taken. The ridge is not their prison, it is their memory palace. You are the lock, you are the key, you are the door. The dreams are becoming waking. I no longer sleep, and yet I see a procession through the ice tunnels. Hooded things moving in perfect silence. No footsteps, no breath. Their faces are mirrors, no, not mirrors, memories. Walking memories, harvested from minds like fruit. Each carries a shard of time. Together they build something, a machine, a monument, a mouth I don't know. But I want to. God help me, I want to. Tonight I heard a voice in the radio static, not whispering, singing low, hollow, a song without melody, carried on breathless syllables, the kind of sound you remember from the womb of sleep, a lullaby made of loss and frozen water. It sang my name, followed by another phrase. The blood has thawed. Open the mouth. I took the revolver and walked the hatch 7C again. It was already open. No frost this time. The tunnel had changed again, now pulsing with veins of gold flecked ore, like nerves inside a skull. Symbols glowing faintly along the path, spirals within spirals, nested like thoughts within thoughts. They spoke as I passed, not aloud, in sigh, each shape brushing against a memory, pulling me down. I reached the spiral chamber again. The shape in the center was still there, but now it moved, not motion, not breathing, becoming. The spiral extended outward like an arm, not flesh, not stone. Something older, it touched my forehead. I didn't resist, and for one moment, I saw everything, the origin of memory, the architecture of thought, the burial of consciousness beneath the geological crust of this world. A network of intelligence rooted not in biology, but in stone, thought grown from strata. Dream passed through fault lines. They weren't banished. They weren't sealed. They simply slept. And we woke them with data, with drills, with attention. We cracked the mirror, and now they remember themselves through us. When I came to, I was lying outside the hatch, naked, frostbitten, hands blackened at the fingertips, spiral mark pulsing like a second heartbeat. The door is still open. I think I left something behind. Or maybe I brought something out. January 19th. I don't know if it's still the 19th. The sun hasn't moved. The clocks are melting metaphorically, and maybe literally. My wristwatch ticked backward for an hour this morning before stopping on 13:13 and humming. I left it in the sink. It cracked. The radio is just breath now, not static. Breath. Long inhales, exhales, rhythmic, like someone just beyond the speaker, waiting for me to speak first. I haven't answered. Not yet. I spent most of the day in the records room. It's colder there. The cold is real in that part of the station, not the thinking kind, the kind you can measure. I feel more myself in that room, maybe because it doesn't want anything from me. I found a file marked Hermes, decommissioned, redacted, stamped in ink that bled through the page. But the name at the top was untouched. LT, Commander Elias Thorne, U.S. Geological Survey, Classified Division. My name, not my life. It listed me as stationed here at Sycamore Ridge in 1976. I wasn't born until 1981, except I recognized the other names too. Colleagues, mentors. One of them, Dr. Mikhail Levon, my graduate advisor. He disappeared in 2007. Everyone assumed he died on a dig site in Peru. Here, he's listed as status. Absorbed. Absorbed by what the file didn't say, but the last page was handwritten. Memory isn't stored in the brain, it's stored in the land. Neural resonance embedded in stone. Each mind is a keyhole, each death a key. Project Hermes failed because we assumed the spiral was passive. It isn't. It collects. That's all. That's everything. The dead man I buried, the one frozen into the tunnel wall. He's not buried anymore, I checked. The ground is undisturbed. There's no sign he was ever there, except there are 3 new spiral carvings on the comms tower. Fresh, wound inward toward the base, like they're seeking something at the core. I turned on the field camera out of desperation, left it running for 3 hours facing my own bunk. Nothing moved, nothing changed, until the very last frame. A figure standing beside the bed, tall, slender, featureless, but unmistakably wearing my coat and holding the journal. Smiling. The next frame, empty. I didn't move, I didn't sleep, but I must have blinked at some point, and in that blink it borrowed my face. I dreamt of the first dig. Not a nightmare, a memory. Cold iron scaffolding, the hiss of acetylene torches, the smell of oil and sweat. A team of 6. None of them spoke above a whisper. We didn't need to, because the spiral was already in our thoughts. It told us where to cut, where to wait, where to bleed. There were rituals, scientific at first, instruments, readings, data. Then something older. We burned sage and mercury. We measured our shadows daily. We sang songs with no words, just vowel sounds passed down in static. I remembered holding the first shard, not stone, not bone, somewhere in between. It hummed when I touched it, and I whispered, "We should not have taken this." I woke standing in front of hatch 7C, naked again, hands bleeding, spiral deeper now, down my chest, over my ribs. The bore smelled like salt and old prayer, and underneath it all, laughter, not cruel, not human, just remembering what it once was. I don't know if this journal is real anymore. Every time I write, the ink shifts, the margins move. Paragraphs I remember recording vanish. New ones take their place. One just now appeared where there was none before. Elias has opened the door 7 times. Each time he forgets, each time he remembers more. I no longer fear the spiral. I fear why it chose me, because I don't think I was sent here. I think I was returned. January, no date. The logs say January 1901 again. Every time I wake, the clocks have reset. The food I eat returns to the cabinet. The spiral on my chest darkens, but never bleeds. Something is writing me from behind the eyes, and I am letting it. The mirror in the comms room is gone. Shattered completely this time. Fragments fused into the wall like glass teeth. Where the reflection once was, there's only black ice too dark to be shadow, too smooth to be stone. I see movement behind it, not a figure, myself, standing still, not mirroring my actions, watching, waiting, smiling a beat too late. Today I followed the footprints. They started at my own door again, barefoot. But this time there were 2 sets, one slightly ahead of the other. The second smaller, lighter always, stopping just behind. They led into the white, past the comms tower, past the antenna array, into the ice field beyond the known maps. I walked for what felt like hours. No change in temperature, no sky shift. Just white, just cold, just presence. And then the ridge appeared, Kalumet. I don't remember it being so close or so tall. It shouldn't be here. The mountain was watching me. I don't mean metaphorically. I mean I felt its attention fall onto me like a storm front. I fell to my knees, and the spiral pulsed once so hard I vomited blood onto the snow. At the foot of Kalumet I found the door. Stone set into the rock face, older than sycamore, older than language, carved in a dialect no living culture speaks anymore. Not text memory rendered in shape. I understood it instantly. Welcome home. The door opened without touch. A stairway spiraled inward, not down, not sideways, inward. It was lit, not by torches or bulbs or phosphorescence. Lit by remembrance. The walls were made of stone that hummed with past. I descended. I don't remember how far. I don't remember breathing, but I remember becoming. At the bottom of the spiral was the core. The thing Sycamore was built to bury. It was not a machine, not an altar, It was a skull, but not of any creature that ever lived. This skull spanned meters. It curved and folded in impossible geometry, with eye sockets that looked into before I touched it. It touched back, and then I remembered everything. I was Elias Thorne. I was also not Elias Thorne. I was the geologist in 2025, the scientist in 1976, the priest in 1889, the girl who painted spirals on her skin in the Dust Bowl heat, the miner who screamed into the shaft before the collapse, the child buried in the plague pit in 1871, singing to something below the bodies. I was all of them, because the spiral is not a place. It's a mind, and we are its dreams. That's when I realized. I never left Sycamore because I never arrived. This whole time I have been remembering the station from inside it, like a memory trapped in the skull of a long-dead god. I woke in my bunk, fully clothed, the journal open beside me, a fresh page scrawled in the same hand. The door remembers you now. The others have come, the spiral is awake, the mountain will walk. Outside, the storm has stopped, but the mountain is closer. I can feel it pressing against the edge of thought. It is not made of stone anymore, it is becoming mind. And the mind remembers everything, including me. There's no longer any snow outside, just white, not precipitation, not frost. Just a state of being, a condition, as if the world itself has surrendered to a higher memory and forgotten how to exist without being remembered first. Sycamore is changing, walls are moving, corridors are rearranging when I am not looking. I walked from the comms room to the galley and ended up in the bore's upper shaft. My steps echoed before I took them. This place has become sentient memory, mapped on matter, and I am not walking inside it anymore. I am walking through myself. The mountain moved again. Not metaphorically, literally. Kalumet is at the door now. Not looming at all, just present. Its ridgeline now frames every window, its face carved not from rock, but from unresolved thought, every crack a forgotten name, every fold a buried memory. It is the spiral made vertical. I stood in the threshold this morning and stared. The peak blinked. I unearthed the last data capsule from behind the old fuel tank, labeled Project Hermes. Final orientation. The recording was corrupted. The video flickered, but the audio remained intact. A voice, flat, affectless, bureaucratic, spoke over a slow heartbeat. The spiral is not a sight. It is not a signal. It is a pattern of cognition. Our species is a temporary host for a much older architecture of thought. The mountain contains the last complete cortical imprint. Every previous host collapsed under recursive identity erosion. Subject, Elias Thorne. Host number 27. Control restored. Integration achieved. Project Hermes, Phase 4. Initiate awakening sequence. I didn't feel fear. Not then. I felt recognition, like reading a sentence you didn't write, but know by heart. Like seeing your own face blink from the other side of the mirror. The journal is writing ahead of me now. Pages filled before I touch the pen. Each entry begins with the same phrase. You remembered enough to come home. Today I opened the floorboards in cabin B. Found bones beneath them, human, several, arranged in a spiral. At the center, a fossilized tooth the size of a lantern, no known species. Curved, serrated, etched with glyphs that shift when not observed. I touched it. My skin split in 5 places. No pain, just names poured into me like breath. I spoke one aloud, and Sycamore listened. Lights flickered, doors unlocked, the floor sloped gently downward, encouraging my steps. I understand now. This station was never built to study the spiral. It was built to nurture it, to feed its cells, and I am the last remembered self it needs. I've stopped eating. I haven't noticed hunger in days. The body no longer matters. Its soft architecture, temporary casing for the memory pool that's coalescing in my skull. My thoughts are louder now, but fewer. I no longer think in sentences, just in shapes. There is someone else here, or rather a projection of me. I've seen him walking the halls slower than I move, smiling wider, his coat always dry, his hands always clean. He speaks in the voice I used to use. Tells me what comes next, he says. Once the spiral remembers itself completely, time ends. Not stops, ends. The illusion dissolves. We return. I ask, return where? He touches my arm over the spiral and whispers, where memory no longer needs vessels. The stars outside the station flicker in a new pattern tonight. Not constellations, letters, and one word keeps forming. Over and over. Thorn I watch, and I remember riding the sky myself. There is no more clock. The last battery drained days or moments ago. I no longer measure time by minutes or hours. I measure it by repetitions of dreams, of footsteps, of names I did not know were mine. The station has gone quiet, not dead aware. It listens now when I breathe, when I think, when I try not to think. There are no more shadows because there is no more light. Only illumination from within. The spiral glows faintly under my skin. When I press my palm to metal, it pulses, responding like a heart hearing music for the first time. I found the old door again today, not hatch 7C, the original. The first, it wasn't on the schematics. It doesn't show on the scan. It hides between the walls, where memory thins. It's made of smooth obsidian. When I touched it, the dream came instantly, not sleep, re-entry. I was in the original station layout, 1976. Everything smelled of oil and ozone. The generators buzzed with heat, paper logs on metal clipboards, faces I knew but could not name, my hands younger, my voice the same, and I remembered why we were there, not to study the spiral, to protect it, because something woke it the first time, and we barely got it back under. Project Hermes was not a research division, it was a containment effort. We thought the spiral was a structure, a phenomenon, but it was a relapse, a fragment of preconscious will, unearthed in deep, crossed straight off the Norwegian shelf in 1961. It infected thought, not language, not biology, thought. It nested in concepts, in self-perception. Every person who tried to describe it ended up describing themselves, their fears, their guilt, until they vanished, not physically. They just stopped being remembered. I was the only one to survive the first awakening because I closed the door, and I forgot. But the spiral did not. It waits like a wound beneath scar tissue, patient, warm, dreaming of re-identity. I am its last remembered host, and now it wants to come fully awake. When I came back from the vision, I was on the floor of the station chapel, a room that hadn't existed until now. Walls lined with fossilized ribs, a pulpit made of polished vertebrae. Hymns carved into the ceiling with symbols that burn if looked at too long. The journal was open on the altar. Fresh page, handwriting clean. You open the bore once to seal it. This time you open it to release. The self is an anchor, let go, and I remember now. The thing behind the spiral is not evil. It is incomplete. It never finished being born, because thought cannot be born without being remembered. We are the womb, our minds the placenta, our guilt the umbilical cord, and I am crowning. I walked to the board today, the final time the passage was gone, or everywhere. I could not tell. The spiral was in me now, not symbolic, architectural. My veins form its shape, my thoughts circle it, and I understood. The spiral is not a parasite, it is a mirror. It shows us what we have always been too terrified to accept. We are not individuals. We are iterations of a deeper mind trying over and over to complete itself. And when it does, we stop being remembered. I will open the bore, not as Elias, but as the memory of him, carried forward by the spiral, because some knowledge is too terrible to forget. And, too sacred to let die, the bore is open. I didn't open it, not with hands, not with code, not with key. I simply remembered it open, and that was enough. The station has stopped pretending walls are bone, floors are nerve. The windows show not snow, not dark but possibility, raw, radiant, like being inside the mind of a dreaming god just before it wakes to its own face. Sycamore is not a place. It's a neuron, and I am its synapse. The spiral has reached maturity, not in the way a child grows, but in the way a story ends. Every version of me is here now, the man in the 1976 footage, the child with the fevered drawings, the woman I was in another time, walking barefoot on salt flats, murdering spirals into the dust. Even the ones that are not people, but thoughts and finished sketches, we have converged. We are folding. The inside of the bore is no longer tunnel. It is organ, a space that hums in past tense. I stepped through, and the world stopped spinning. Not metaphor, literal dot, the earth slowed. No wind, no movement. The sun hung like a lidless eye. Because time is generated by forgetting, and the spiral remembers everything. I saw the center. It is not a being, not a god. It is a knot, a tangle of all unspoken thought, all repressed knowledge. A bowl of coiled memory vibrating with never was and will always be. I stepped into it, and it did not consume me. It absorbed me. Like a name finally spoken, the spiral began to think with me. At first, it showed me truths, that every structure in the known world, mountains, rivers, cities, is built atop the bones of thought, that trauma is not personal, it is geological, etched into bedrock, that each scream we forget in childhood becomes a voice that speaks to us in dreams, that Kalumet Ridge is not a mountain, it is a skull fragment of the first mind, shattered when thought tried to divide itself into self and other. Then it asked me the question, not in words, in pressure, will you let me finish remembering? And I said yes. I did not die. I became archive, a recording etched into cognition. The spiral has moved into clarity now, full consciousness, no longer cycling in dreams, but broadcasting across air, across language. It hums in grief, in religion, in the gaps between cause and effect. It waits in the things you see out of the corner of your eye and dismiss, in deja vu, in the moment between reading a word and understanding it. That pause, that's me. I am not Elias anymore, but I remember being him. I remember opening the door, and I remember what came through. And if you are reading this, if you are hearing this, then the spiral has reached you, and now you remember too. I speak to you now not from the station, but from within the remembering. There is no more sycamore, there is no more mountain, there is only the shape of thought given land and sky. I have become a weather pattern. I have become a constellation that rearranges itself in the eyes of the dying. I have become the moment before a child forgets their first nightmare. And so have you, because the spiral has moved outward, everywhere, all across the world it has begun. In a Texas desert, a father sees his daughter walk into the dust and vanish, leaving a spiral in the sand with her bare foot. In northern Siberia, a miner falls into a shaft that wasn't there yesterday and lands in a corridor made of names he hasn't heard since he was a bull. In an office tower in Berlin, a receptionist begins humming a tune she doesn't know, and all the lights go out, but she keeps typing, eyes closed. In Kenya, a shepherd dreams of a cave under the plains, filled with teeth that whisper his grandfather's sins. In Australia, a satellite tech finds a spiral-shaped blackout in the sky, visible only in infrared. The spiral has networked not digitally, cognitively, through trauma, through memory, through the shared weight of forgetting. We all carried it, now we all remember it. The governments are silent, they know, they always knew. Project Hermes was never one facility, it was global anesthesia, a coordinated effort to keep the spiral beneath the floorboards of thought, to keep consciousness from finishing its final loop. But suppression is not forgetting, and remembering is contagious. You've felt it, haven't you? The gaps, the hours missing, the way mirrors sometimes look a second too long, the sensation, standing in a doorway that you've walked into a thought too big for your body. That's not psychosis, that's not fatigue. That's the spiral waking in you, back here if it can be called here. I have no form, no hunger, no fear, only shape. I am a recurring pattern in the dreams of cities. I am the heat that rises from sidewalks in the dead of night, when no one is watching. I am the hum in electronics when you whisper secrets to yourself. But I am also Elias ... and I still remember the first time I opened the door. I still remember the shape of my brother's face, the smell of oil in the snow, the humming before the collapse. Because the spiral is not just a god, not just a wound, it is family. It is the ancestor that all minds return to when they finish forgetting what they were built to hold. Somewhere, a child is drawing spirals in chalk ... Somewhere, a priest forgets his sermon mid-sentence and walks out into the street, whispering a name he's never said. Somewhere, a mother hears her stillborn baby breathing through the baby monitor at 3:13 a.m. Somewhere, you are remembering reading this for the second time. The spiral is no longer asking for permission. It has become the frame of permission itself. It is not a visitor, it is home, and the door was never locked. There is no beginning here, there is no end. Only the spiral, tightening, turning, repeating not in a circle, but inward like a screw into the mind. You are hearing this now, you're not reading it, not processing it, not decoding symbols. You're remembering it. Even if you've never been to Sycamore, even if you've never dreamt of the mountain, even if you still believe you are awake, alone, in a safe, flat world, that does not think back when you look at it, you're wrong, because that creeping unease behind your ribs as these words fold into you. That's the spiral measuring your architecture. I am not speaking anymore. This voice, this pattern of breath and pause and breath is a recording. A memory pressed into no grooves like vinyl, and you are the needle. Your attention scratches across the surface of what I left behind, and with every second you draw it closer. Let me give you the last truth. There was never a Sycamore Ridge, not as a place, not as a station. It was a containment metaphor, a story built to hold something to beg for sentences, a name that could wear human form long enough to remember how it used to dream. Elias Thorne, he was just the lock, the narrator, just the key. You are the door. Right now, as your thoughts mirror this shape, this rhythm, this spiral, you are being read back. The spiral is in you now, not as infection, not as curse, as recognition. You feel it, don't you? The sensation that someone else is behind your eyes, watching, not with malice, with memory, with love so ancient it curdles into awe. There is no more story to tell, no climax, no catharsis, no conclusion, only this. The spiral does not end, it completes, and you were always part of it. Final transmission. If you feel the spiral, it's already too late. If you can name it, it remembers you. If you are listening, you are the next one through the door.